Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara May, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and I have with us today Adora Winquist. She is author and expert in the fields of plant and vibrational medicine, and she is a visionary in the nascent area of quantum alchemy, an evolutionary transformative path for self-mastery, which facilitates healing at the DNA level. She intertwines the divine knowledge and ancient wisdom of esoteric philosophy, psychospiritual dynamics, essential oil, and energy medicine through her 20 plus years as a facilitator, educator, formulator, and entrepreneur. A pioneer in the field of aromatherapy, Adora continues to be sought out for her unique nose and ability to formulate aromatic products for individual and corporate clients through her website, adorawinquist.com. She is the co-author of Detox, Nourish, Activate, Plant and Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love, a revolutionary guide to healing at the DNA level for self-mastery, which is available through the UK-based publisher Aeon Books. Welcome back, Adora.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lara. It's so wonderful to be with you again.
Yes, I'm excited. So today we're going to talk about deepening intimacy in our relationships. And I've had several requests about, some relationship topics. So I thought this would be the perfect time. So can you tell us a little bit how, and maybe how your relationship coaching sort of weaves into all the things that you do and sort of your approach with it?
Absolutely. Well, I would say that the common thread of my work as a healer and teacher and entrepreneur over the past 25 years is the thread of love. And we all long to experience love in deeper ways, in more harmonious ways. Right? Love is the most potent force in the universe. And at the same time, it is one that sometimes causes or how we experience some of the deepest pain in our life. And when I look back on my own journey in my early childhood dynamics and what I like to call my treasure map from when I was young, we start to look at how love was represented, how it was experienced in our lives. And in my family, there was a kind of a disconnect between my parents and how they expressed love to each other in healthy ways. And my father in particular was very loving towards me. And yet my mother was a little bit more standoffish. There were, I think, experiences in her relationship with my father that didn't necessarily go as well as she wished when I was born. And so when we start to look at this childhood treasure map of our early days, and we start to see how love was experienced, expressed, given, received, was it freely, right? Did it have conditions? Was it withdrawn? We start to see how those experiences imprint on ourselves. And then, of course, I took those experiences into my early adulthood and had a great deal of anger, of resentment, of a lot of things that happened in my home, and how the constant state of bickering, arguing, the venom that can be passed back and forth to people in an environment is something that becomes not only palpable, but part of our own experience as we're developing. And so early on in my own journey of healing, it was these areas that I had to look at, right? That I had to bring my own love to. And we're all looking for that perfect love, right? And all of us, every single one of us had experiences when we were young, when it wasn't perfect, and we still carry those patterns within us. So for me, looking at anger, looking at betrayal, looking at resentment, and how those early childhood patterns in my youth actually formed my own experience of love, how to give, how to receive, and actually how to close off, right? And when we talk about intimacy, we're really talking about that intimate connection with ourselves. And when we look at sacred relationship, especially with our partners, our husbands, our wives, our significant others, boyfriends, girlfriends, well, oftentimes we start to look outside of ourselves more and more and more, right? When we think of sacred relationship, we think about it with those partners. We think about it maybe with our children or even in business, but we forget that our primary sacred relationship is one with ourselves. And so that has really been the quest of my own healing journey. And of course, we know for those of us that are working in these conscious ways of healing, transformation, personal development, and evolution, those things that we have brought individually into this life to transform and heal, once we reach a certain tipping point in our own healing journey, well, we start to get other individuals that come to us to bring healing to their lives as well, right? It's like coming to that deep realization that each and every one of us have a unique light and a gift to bring to the world, to the greater good of all, but first by healing ourselves. And so my journey has very much been one on love and self-love, and bringing healing to parts of my own physical well-being through endometriosis, right? Talk about love and love of the divine feminine and the sacred feminine, and ways that we look to bring healing first to ourselves. And that really was the gift of my early journey. But it continues, doesn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely. It's so interesting that I feel like sort of society, especially like maybe like when we're younger and maybe we're more like the unconsciousness of our development and our
Yes.
journey, we maybe have this expectation that, you know, we're going to meet someone and fall in love and then it's just going to take care of itself. Um,
Hmm.
but then I think as we go through maybe different relationships, obviously more than one, maybe we start to open up and realize, hey, you know, a relationship is not just a relationship of one. You know, it's a
Yes.
dynamic of you know, at least two people, and
Yes.
and we all bring our stuff, right?
Right. Right. We are the common denominator of every relationship we're
but
in.
But yes, exactly. And so I do remember after I had an ending to a long and significant relationship in my life, I finally, I don't know what made me come to this realization, but I was like, man, I really need to start owning my own side of the street, like what I brought to this relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and then, you know, when I was ready to look towards that next one, being very conscious, or at least more conscious and aware as much as I could at that point to wherever I was, you know, in the journey,
Hmm.
that okay, you know, how am I going to show up? What am I going to bring, and what am I ready to let go? What am I ready to
Yes.
not bring forward?
Mm. Hmm.
Because, you know, this person doesn't need that in their life. Like I don't need it and they don't need
Well,
it.
it's so true. It's so true. And we all have this, right? So whether or not we are in a sacred relationship, right, with our one, or we're looking to call in that one, right, in sacred partnership, the journey has to start within. And how do we change until we understand ourselves, right? So it's that adage, know thyself. It's coming into that level of understanding of why we act, why we react, in the way that we do? What are our trigger points? What is our love language? What is our attachment style? Until we understand those parts of ourselves, it's kind of like, walking blind into an enormous arena, right? On a quest, but we can't see what's ahead of us because we don't know what's behind us and we don't know what's within us. And when we start to say, well, what are these patterns that I keep experiencing in relationship over and over and over again that make me scratch my head to say, hey, this isn't what I want. This doesn't feel good. I'm not being honored here. This feels like a betrayal. Where have I experienced betrayal in the past? Where have I learned to close myself off from the love that I so deeply desire? And where are the places within me, and this is one of the most insidious emotions, distorted emotions in within ourselves and in relationship, is disappointment. Because sometimes we can consider betrayal and say, gosh, I've had some really significant ones here, either in relationship or in our patterning, right, that go back to our family and our mothers or our fathers. We can say, well, I was hurt in this way, or I deeply wanted this, and I didn't get it, and I was disappointed. And so each time we experience disappointment, even if it is smaller in regard, it begins to compound and compact. And then before we know it, we have the expectation of further disappointment, and we don't know it, right? Because it's at the subconscious level. We're not aware of it. But we're always expecting the other shoe to drop, or we're always expecting the other person to leave, or to not be present, to not listen, to not see us. And don't we all crave to be seen and heard and understood for who we are authentically? Right? We all deeply desire that.
Yeah.
So first step is really the focus inward. And I'll share a little story. About 5 years ago, I met my person, my soulmate. And yet I had been married twice before and in numerous relationships. And yet here was this person that I didn't expect at this time. And yet he had all of these attributes that I would write about, that I was calling in for years, right? That I was dreaming almost into existence, or that's what it felt like. And yet, there was these moments of anxiety that would come up in the beginning. And I don't know about you, but I have a bit of a fear of heights. And I remember being on this roller coaster in New Jersey, and I sat in the front, and I felt so exhilarated going up to the top, right? Like, oh, this is amazing. I can totally do this. And just about when the roller coaster was going to make its way downward, I had a complete panic attack. I tried to like jostle the harness to see if I could get out, right? And this is what happens with intimacy when we are afraid, when we've been hurt in the past, because the past leaves imprints, right? And it was a dance in the beginning, and eventually I would cry through these moments that seemed like, why am I upset? This is so joyful. But I felt like my heart was being opened with a crowbar. It was physically painful, right? And why? Well, love was coming to places within me where it hadn't been before.
Mm-hmm.
And intimacy is like that because we don't know what we don't know.
So it's almost like we have to allow ourselves to process the pain and the hurt from previous, even if we've, shoved it down for many years. And like you said, childhood experiences as well, in order to sort of crack open, to break open,
Yes.
and allow that love to pour through us. And so that we can get to that point of giving and receiving equally in love.
Exactly. And I love what you said about breaking open, because it's like that, right? The places where we have learned and trained ourselves to close because we're afraid of getting hurt again, even though we might not be consciously aware of that. Well, the truth is 95% or more of our decisions come from our subconscious mind, right? The subconscious has recorded every experience we've ever had, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of truth. So every time we've been hurt because we've opened, right, and we've lost love, or we've lost loved ones, or we've been betrayed, that pain that we carry, until we can open up to release it, we're still closed. And some of the practices that we look at in this journey of transformation, in this journey of opening to receive, to cultivate, create the love that we deeply desire, there are steps to this that involve letting go. There are steps that involve the powerful sacred practice of forgiveness, right? Because until we can forgive, and there's this wonderful quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and of course I'm paraphrasing here, but if we cannot forgive, if we're devoid of the ability to forgive, then we can't fully open to love. And so this is so important, because then we start to say, well, forgive. Well, what does that mean, right? Is it easy for me to forgive? Or sometimes we don't even think of forgiveness, but what we do start to cultivate are feelings of judgment, of anger, of resentment, of criticism, of withdrawal, right? And we know that those do not serve us, right? Because that doesn't feel good in the body, in the mind, in the heart. So when we think of forgiveness, we also have to acknowledge, like, we can't coerce it, we can't force it, we can't manipulate it. And the truth is, it's really not about the other person, because the true forgiveness that we crave is the forgiveness of ourselves for all of the places where we've held self-judgment, unrealistic expectations, where we feel like we've failed in life and love, right? All of these places that we hold ourselves up to something that wasn't possible.
It's like an allowing, like it's almost like we have to get to a place within ourselves that we're able to allow
Yeah,
ourselves to let go, allow ourselves to open up, allow
yeah,
ourselves to even like give ourselves permission to see it in a different perspective and a different light.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a breath code, love code breath technique that I created, calling it breath work for the modern alchemist, because I think that we need practices that are simple, accessible, that we can start to do anytime, any place. Because when we feel like, oh gosh, I got to do a meditation tonight, it's a half hour every day or 20 minutes, like, that seems overwhelming. And what is, human nature, when we get overwhelmed, what do?
Shut down.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Run away, shut
Nothing.
down, do
Run
nothing.
away, shut down. Right. And so what does it take to live a life that is full, that is free, right? When we start to look at some of these practices, like and I'll share this with you because I think it's really powerful for all of your listeners to feel a sense of empowerment of their own well-being, of their own experience of love within themselves and their outer relationships. Because there is something really potent that happens when we set ourselves free, right? And we're the only ones that can do that. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like asking someone else, please forgive me. Right. And it's also not like, you hurt me, well, I have to forgive you to set myself free. No, I have to forgive myself for all of the places where I've held myself up to something that is impossible. And the truth is that, ultimately, even when we think about betrayal, right, and we've all experienced it in some capacity. I have a whole litany of a story that I can go back to, and, starting with my mother, and then so many females in my life, right? And the sisterhood wound, that's a whole other topic of
Mm-hmm.
conversation. We could dive deeply within that. But the truth is that if we're really honest with ourselves, no one has betrayed me more than I have myself.
Mm-hmm.
And any time that we're not honoring ourselves, our light, our bodies, our mind, our hearts, our souls, our worth, our value, right? Think of all of the energy that's held in um, challenges with self-worth, self-esteem, right? Seeing, feeling, allowing our true value and worth to shine. There's a piece of this that we all carry from the human perspective. So again, coming back to what is a way that we can in this moment, and I'm sure that this is something that we could practice together, because I don't know about you, but in this moment, I can think of something right now that I want to release
Mhm.
and forgive and bless to be able to transform. Because when we carry the pain of the past, what happens? It's heavy, right? And not only is it heavy and it doesn't feel good, it distorts what we are creating in this moment and in our future. So, do you want to do the practice?
Yeah, let's.
Want to go
Yeah.
for it? Okay. Okay, great. Now, of course, one of the caveats I will always say, as an aromatherapist and someone who has not only worked with essential oils and created formulas that have sold hundreds of thousands of um, bottles around the world and had the gift to be able to work with so many individuals in this capacity to transform our emotion, that if you incorporate a pure essential oil in this practice, you will further potentize it. And you will not only potentize it, but you will support the shift of your feeling in the moment. You will support the shift of your emotional reactions in future moments, because you can repattern your neural pathways in this regard. You can also access the subconscious, right? We know the subconscious mind is both our lock and the master key to open up to higher levels of conscious awareness. So I'll always say, add a drop of your favorite essential oil to the palm of your hand and take a deep breath in before you do this. But it's going to be 3 simple steps: release, forgiveness, and gratitude. So the first one is acknowledging that there's something inside of you, there's something in your mind, your heart, your soul, your body that doesn't feel good, and you want to let go of it, right? So when we're holding on to something like this really tight, in our awareness or in our day to day, like there's a good reminder that there is something to be transformed. So it is a breath in inhalation, right, which holds the energy of expansion. So once you have that in your mind, take a deep breath in, and on your exhalation, you're going to invite in the intention to let go. Let go of whatever it is that no longer serves the truth of who you are. And in that letting go, it's a great, like, breath, right? It's just like that incredible release, that incredible relief, right? And this is how we open to greater intimacy in our relationships, by letting go of the things of the past that no longer serve us. Now, you might feel like, okay, I did that one breath, I haven't fully let go of it. Well, that's okay, right? The release breath can be a few breaths, like of just another one in and just letting go until you feel that release in your musculature, right? In your mind, you can let it dissolve. And your emotions, you can just let it dissipate. And then when you feel, and it is that like kind of letting down of the energy, letting the energy relax in your body, letting your muscles soften. And then the next breath is that breath of forgiveness, right? And bringing that forgiveness to ourselves, because forgiveness paves the way for our liberation. It sets us free. It also allows us to receive grace, right? And just the word grace, like when we say that, right? It's like a healing balm for our soul. It brings solace, it brings reconciliation, it brings comfort. So let's take in that forgiveness breath and just letting the energy of forgiveness bathe you and bless you with grace. Now, the great thing about this is the more that you do it, the faster it works. And the more you're creating that automatic response, right? And these skills, these tools of empowerment. So just that forgiveness. And then when you're ready, when you feel like, wow, it's like a wave of easefulness through my body, well, then take a breath of gratitude. Gratitude, we know, is one of the highest frequencies of co-creation in our lives. We know that consistent cultivation of gratitude day to day has so many beneficial effects on our brain, right? Releasing dopamine, serotonin, increasing our positive outlook, right? It brings us into a place of attraction with more experiences to be grateful for. So it is also an energy of expansion. So that breath of gratitude, just I'm so grateful for my own courage and commitment to transform, to change, and to create a different experience of love, of intimacy, of life than I've had in the past, than my ancestors have had in their past, right? And that many of us collectively have had in our past. There is a new way. How does that feel?
Feels wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, so simple but so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we bring this back to intimacy, right? What is intimacy? Intimacy is into me, I see. And even coming back to that conversation about my own sacred relationship, the one thing I realized in those early days of cracking open, breaking open, was that I was shocked because I thought I was so open before. And I thought it was all of these other individuals that I was in relationship with that weren't emotionally available, that were so dysfunctional, right? And yet it was my own places of brokenness that I was connecting with so I could come into a deeper awareness and understanding of myself to heal, to grow.
So I've had this question asked of me before, so I'll ask it of you as well. When people are, they say they're in this cycle, I keep attracting the same type of person no matter what I do, or the same
Yeah.
situation always ends up, even if it's a different person. Obviously, we're the common denominator. How do we start to allow ourselves to, is it that process that you just, brought to
Mm,
us? Or how do we maybe sort of like make that leap to realize,
mm,
what we need to shift to break that pattern? Some people will say, oh, well, you have a karmic lesson you need to learn, and that's why it keeps coming up. But is that
mm.
really true? I don't know. What do you think?
So this is what I believe, that if we look at the pattern that we are currently experiencing, everything is held within this moment, right? All potential is held within this moment. And if we start to say, okay, here's this pattern, keeps showing up again and again and again. Why is that? I don't want this. Well, we want to follow the threads of that pattern back to our early childhood dynamics, to that treasure map, and look at where those patterns are rooted. We don't have to go back into 8 lifetimes ago or even go into the conversation of the karma, because everything is held within this life, our whole map, our whole blueprint for healing and transformation, to come into a deeper understanding of our soul's path and purpose, right? And so the pattern is held somewhere within your treasure map. The pattern is held somewhere within either the mother or father or in how they related to each other. Because everything that has been held within your patterning right now has also been held through your ancestral lineage. And so that is how we evolve, right? We evolve by coming in and transforming and transmuting these patterns that have been carried and repeated again and again and again and again. So one of the things I like to say is that we're really coming into this deep awareness of transformation from our soul to ourselves. Because even the patterning, even though we feel it from an emotional perspective, it's all viscerally held in the cellular consciousness. So until we can go back and look at the pattern and how it was held within our family of origin and feel that pain that's locked inside of us, right? the feeling the pain and not getting stuck in the pain, but going back to feel it allows us to unlock it and understand it and bring our awareness to that expanded place, right? That increases our compassion for ourselves, and each other, right? And because we can't do better until we know better. We can't know until we go back and really start to look at where that pattern is rooted and connected. And it's always going to come back to your family of origin, into your treasurehood, your treasure map of your
Mhm.
childhood, right? And it's kind of the rub, but it's also the blessing,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
map is there when you're ready to look.
Yeah. And again, creating a safe space where you can allow yourself to feel that pain and process through the whole cycle. I think that's so powerful, and so many of us, shy away or completely avoid or run from it, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but once we've allowed ourselves to do that, then I feel like we're able to also start to see things from a bird's eye view, from the global perspective.
Yes.
And like you said, bring that compassion to the other people that were involved in the dynamic. And instead of looking at it from sort of inside the fishbowl, you're able to be the observer.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, also helps us be able to forgive ourselves and the other, people involved a little bit easier.
Well, it does, because once we're able to come to a place of our own inner healing and transformation, and to be able to step outside of the pattern to look in, then we see it from a completely different perspective of like, oh wow, look at how their own past, look at how my mother, my father's own childhood, um, formed the individual that they were, right? I can really see how they did the best that they could at that point. I couldn't
Mhm.
see that before. I was too much in it. And I had an individual experience in my own life, and because there was tremendous dysfunction in my family of origin in my childhood, and where I had a lot of judgment towards my mother for staying in a relationship that wasn't honoring her, even though I had a tremendous closeness with my father, right? Because remember, we don't see things from just one perspective, and we don't feel things just from one perspective. There are many different ways that we look at our early childhood patterning based on our age, our development, and where we've created alliances with one parent over another. Well, that distorted energy that I felt towards my mother and was also projected back to me. So I don't want to just discount that to say it was based only on perception. Many of us have experiences that are deeply painful and wounding. But it wasn't until I was in my own relationship and had a similar pattern of that dysfunction, distortion, that I said, "Oh my gosh, now I understand." Right? I have compassion for her for the first time, but it took me over 38 years to get to that point,
Yeah,
because I couldn't see it before.
right. And I think that's also just part of our journey and our
Yeah.
evolution and our path. And again, just being gentle with ourselves, and instead of saying, well, oh, why didn't I see this from the very beginning? Just be like, well, you know, I went through this journey, and now I have the opportunity to look back
Yeah,
and forgive and learn and move forward. And I also have the option to make different choices going forward. I think we also sometimes forget that just because we've had even a pattern in the past, maybe in relationships, that doesn't mean that the next one has to be the same. All we have to
exactly.
do is say, I can choose differently, and give ourselves permission to do that.
Yes. And when we can invite that love in and forgiveness into places within us that it hasn't been before, it transforms everything and opens that new possibility, that new elevated experience of relationship, harmony, intimacy, passion, right? Not just the passion that is the dopamine rush in the beginning, but when the passion and intimacy and commitment and connection can continue to deepen in time, right? Building
Mhm.
unity for longevity. What a gift that is to know that that is possible when we are committed to the transformation, right? To the journey of change.
And even, being at a in a place too where you're comfortable sharing these things about yourself with your partner and
Yes.
saying, like, sorry, I was just triggered, and maybe giving them a little background so that they understand you at a deeper level also.
Yeah.
Again, it's a two-way street, and sometimes we probably trigger our partners just as much as they trigger us. And being open with
Yes.
those lines of communication, I think, helps create a deeper understanding and compassion.
It's so true. And this is where, coming back to talking about love languages, right? Those five primary love languages that were identified by Dr. Gary Chapman, and knowing not only your own love languages, right? How you feel that your emotional needs are met, but also how your partner feels that, because we tend to think, well, just because I'm this way, I like words of appreciation or affirmation, well, then my partner must too. But perhaps their primary love language is that physical touch, right? Which doesn't always have to be sensual in nature. It could be that simple, like, I'm going to make sure I kiss you or touch you before I leave the house for the day, or that little back rub at the end of the evening when your partner's had a very long day. So it's really understanding ourselves, understanding our partner, looking into our attachment styles, which of course are based on our early childhood dynamics, and to know ourselves before we open ourselves to know and understand our partners.
hmm I have another question for you, that has come up through, different, coaching situations, and it's something that I always think is sometimes tricky for people, when we have closed ourselves off with the thought or intention that we're creating healthy boundaries, that I'm using air quotes, healthy boundaries.
Mm,
So I would love your perspective on the sort of maybe the line or the difference between being closed off and having
mm,
a healthy boundary with a partner
mm.
in a relationship.
Yeah, this is such an important conversation to have, because we look at some schools of thought, well, where we say, well, I have healthy boundaries. So I'm really clear that I can take care of myself and I don't need you, right? I want to be with you, but I don't need you. And at the same time, if we look at the brain and our biochemical response, when we are in relationship, we're actually biochemically wired to bond deeply with one another. So it's really a misnomer to say, well, I'll just keep you out here because of my great boundary. Because in relationship, when we bond deeply with another, we regulate each other's hormones, right? Blood pressure, like all of these biochemical responses that are outside of what we think of emotional bonding.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really need to be clear, well, am I saying I'm holding this boundary because I'm afraid of opening and becoming vulnerable to the depths that I actually really want, right? It's safer to keep you out here. Now, of course, we know boundaries are important, right? To be able to honor ourselves, to not have codependency in our relationship, right? I'm not responsible for your happiness, right? Nor are you responsible for mine. We're two individuals that are seeking first within ourselves. When we can find that place of love within through self care, self honoring, self love, where we fill our cup first, well, then it's a very different level of engagement when we come to relationship with another. And
Mm-hmm.
we are able to open in a very deep way for that intimacy that involves true intimacy involves emotional vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way around that, especially because we've all been hurt before. So having those conversations that can be uncomfortable, like, I get triggered when you do this. And it's not because of you, it's because of my past. But how can we come together and be open in our communication and find a new place of meaningful connection that has authenticity, honor, and the depth of what's possible when two human souls come together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also, like you said, just being honest with ourselves that what our souls are truly seeking is that deep intimacy,
Yeah.
and just being okay with that, and then, like you said, like being, I think, vulnerable and to a level transparent, um,
Yes.
about what the stuff that we're bringing with us that
Yeah.
that maybe we haven't let go yet, and that maybe whatever the relationship dynamic is will allow each person to maybe let another layer go. um,
Yes. And that's so true. And it's one of the things, like, in preparation, I have two upcoming retreats in the Santa Monica Mountains in May. One on sacred relationship for couples, and one on those that are looking to manifest their soulmate. And it's been such a rich time of exploration, and to see how many people are either looking to find their soulmate, but maybe don't believe that it's possible. And the ones that are in relationship that have still been carrying the pain of the past, that want to go deeper, to up level their relationship.
well, I'm glad you brought up your retreats. Do you want to tell us about them a little bit more and a
Sure.
little bit deeper?
Yeah, I'd love to. So on May 6th, in the Santa Monica Mountains, in this beautiful private home, we have the Sacred Relationship Couples Retreat. And it's jokingly having this conversation that it's not a couples therapy, right? It's a couples up leveling program, right? For you to come into the places and build that unity for longevity, right? And what it takes to not just maintain, not just live, but really thrive, really deepen that connection, that commitment, that passion, and that intimacy that is so possible when we are connected with our other, right? With our person. And so we'll be exploring some of these aspects of love language and attachment styles and soul psychology, and really giving the tools for deepening conscious communication, which is not just speaking, right? It's listening too,
Mm-hmm.
and how we can move through some of the areas where we end up coasting in our relationship, or get ahead of those challenges that do happen right after the 5-year mark, the 10-year mark, right? How do we build and deepen from that perspective? And so I'm going to be sharing a technique that I have called Eros Touch, with, of course, an Eros passion love formula of aphrodisiac essential oils, and how we can cultivate these practices in a very accessible way of deepening that intimacy and opening to greater levels of that passionate connection to renew and revitalize, reinvigorate our love. And then, of course, we're planning that. And then someone said to me, Adora, what about for me? Like, I'm really ready to find my soulmate. And so the next day on May 7th is manifesting your soulmate, mapping your way to the one, which is, a process that is actually actionable, right? Actually creating that map, and then using alchemy and vibration and frequency to bless that and potentize that with actionable steps to take every day, where you actually are receiving your person, right? That there is an alchemical process that happens. And of course, first, we know it starts with the journey inward, right? To be able to say, okay, this is a pattern that I've had in these relationships, and I know it's not serving me. I am ready to transform and transmute, to let it go and open it up, to write a new story of love, to write a beautiful new story of what it means to have that harmonious depth of emotional connection and the ability to go out there and live your most abundant, loving, harmonious life. Because it is possible. And the truth is that, your journey in life is meant to be filled with joy. You
Yes.
can have it all.
Yes. Wonderful. Sounds so beautiful. And can people find those on your website,
Ye-
AdoraWinquist.com?
Yes, they're right there. If you go to the retreat section at AdoraWinquist.com, or of course the soulinstitute.co. And there's wonderful information. If you have questions, you can book a free discovery call with me or my co-facilitator, Sean Christian, who's a wonderful creative mindset coach. And, one of the things that I think is most unique about these two programs is that we bring a unified perspective, a unified approach of the masculine and the feminine, because we need both. We have both within us. And to balance those within us is how we create greater harmony, right, in the relationships outside of us.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to bring forward before we finish up today?
Well, I just want to thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share and have this deep dive. I love what you're bringing forward in the world. I would say that please visit the website for our blog, our alchemy library, our YouTube channel. We have so many free, wonderful resources to curate your path of self-mastery, of deepening love, of intimacy, of transformation, of growth, and really becoming a part of our vision. My vision for the Institute is to activate over 25 million individuals to embody their soul purpose and thrive in all facets of life. And we are evolving consciousness with the frequency of love. And so please join us. We welcome you.
Yes, yes. I definitely encourage you. I completely agree. So again, thank you, Adora. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too, Dr. Lara. Thanks so much. Blessings.
Thank you.